Hey there, and welcome. I'm Anna Hartman, and this is Unreal Results, a podcast where I help you get better outcomes and gain the confidence that you can help anyone, even the most complex cases. Join me as I teach about the influence of the visceral organs and the nervous system on movement, pain, and injuries, all while shifting the paradigm of what whole body assessment and treatment really looks like. I'm glad you're here. Let's dive in. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Unreal Results podcast. We are back after a short 5 or 6 week summer break. Got our first new episode. Super excited to be back. Mostly just because I love sharing and connecting and just doing new stuff. But the break was much needed, and I was hoping to be like a little bit more inspired and like ready to create when I came back, but that's just not how it goes. I will give you an update on my life. I don't even remember what the update was when I last signed off, other than like it was summertime starting. But it was, like I just gotten like returned home to San Diego after being on the road for months, and working with my athlete with his rehab, and having a very impossible goal of trying to get him back in time for the Olympic trials, which didn't happen. And that was tough. I mean, in all, now that we're through the weeds a little bit, the Olympics are over. We can reflect back a little bit, and I think we're realizing that yes, the goal we had was probably pretty impossible. But who would we be if we didn't try in the first place, right? So it's like we were trying to do something nobody's ever done before, and we really, I think both of us didn't really like. Of course, we wanted to believe it was possible, and we want to believe that if anybody could do it, it was us. And but I think like deep down, neither of us really thought it would work out, but we both wanted to try. And what happened was at the beginning of his rehab, we were crushing it, and things were going so well that all of a sudden, I think both of us really felt like, holy shit, like this might happen. Like this could actually work out. And so then we got our hopes up, and then it didn't happen. And so we went on this like roller coaster of emotions of feeling like it wasn't possible, thinking it was possible, feeling like it was getting close, and then just not doing it, not being successful in what goal we set out for. And there was a big like sadness and disappointment with that, and like having to go through probably the emotions that we were like putting off when the initial injury happened, which was this like feelings of grief and sadness and loss that occur when you have an injury, and an injury that is going to affect a timeline and a goal that you've had for a really long time. And so, both of us, him and I, have been going through quite the emotional, roller coaster. And I think both of us are starting to feel like more of ourselves and better. But I will say that this summer, I definitely needed the rest, and I've definitely needed the like time away, and like just still probably not fully recovered and rested emotionally and physically from that whole experience it. And also we're like, we're still going through it, right? Like he's still rehabbing. We're not 100% yet. And very, he's very close. He's basically like training regularly now. But um, we still I don't think either of us will feel like we're fully finished until he is competing again at the level that he was before he got hurt. So, there's still more to do. There's more time, but at least it's feeling like we're feeling better. So, and also too, like both him and I probably will share more about the experience as we get to that point down the road. And then we've been documenting everything, like his program, videos of it, like literally documenting everything with the hopes of sharing it with the world one day, because it is like pretty interesting. I've been speaking to a colleague of mine. Shout out Darcy Norman. He's a PT athletic trainer, but works as a movement performance coach for USA Soccer. And we've been like going back and forth on like return to performance protocols, and like things that we've been doing and like things that we're doing and seeing like really unreal results with. And though I don't recommend necessarily having the focus of your next ACL protocol being so accelerated like me and my athlete was trying to do, I think what we really learned some great things from it that can be applied in any sort of rehab to facilitate and optimize healing, tissue repair, tissue synthesis, tendon regeneration, which is really cool and really sort of like the perspective I want to offer, which is not necessarily going to be like, follow this exact program to get back in 4 months, but it's going to be like, utilize these principles to facilitate optimized healing and return to performance in whatever timeline you want. So that's coming at some point. I probably don't see it happening until 2025, to be honest. So but it's there, and it's just really exciting to share. And some of it, there's been episodes that I've already shared a little bit about it. So, I'll make sure Joe links those. One, I talked about how important utilizing the swelling reduction protocol was through this whole process, as well as the LTAP was through the whole rehab process. So there's definitely been episodes that I've talked about it from a post-surgical rehab standpoint too, that I cannot already share and know that it was like a huge part of getting ready for it. So the other bit of this, I said it was a couple things, right? Of like feeling like not 100% rested just yet, even though I've taken some time off, is man, I got off of my thyroid medicine at the beginning of the year. I don't know why I'm so obsessed with like not being on medicine. But partly it was because I never thought it was really doing anything for me. But now here I am 8 months later, and I've had my blood work done once to test to see how I did off of it. And of course, after like a month or so off of it, I did see like things diminish, and I was supposed to get it done again, and I just got too busy and didn't. And then a little bit of me is like just being stubborn of trying to like heal myself and like overcome without it, which is silly because it was so hard to like be healing myself while I was on it. I'm not really sure why I thought being off of it would make it like be easier, other than I really was not feeling like it was doing that much. However, getting my blood work done tomorrow, because I have just been like really, really tired. And it is hard whenever I come off of a season. It's hard for me to know if this tired is tired or just finally able to rest. And what I'm also noticing the last month or so is not only am I tired, but my body hurts. My delayed onset muscle soreness is like a little bit more noticeable from my workouts, even though I shouldn't probably be feeling it because I've been pretty consistent with my workouts. When I go on walks, my feet are extremely sore. and sore in a different way than they haven't been in the past, and just like I just I have like increased muscle aches and pains. And I had this realization the other day. I'm like, oh my gosh, I think that's actually a sign of hypothyroidism, is muscle aches and pains. And so I think, yeah, so finally I was like, okay, so maybe that medicine was doing more than I thought. And even though I didn't necessarily notice a huge energy burst when I took it, or like a big decrease in weight, um, maybe it was doing stuff, because now that I don't have it, I'm like, yeah, I have been like way more sore than normal. And my like general bloating and lymphatic issues have been a little bit harder to control um since coming off of it too. So I don't know though. This is all like just guessing. I'm getting my blood work done tomorrow and we'll figure it out. But I think one of my main goals of the podcast, right, is to introduce you all to a more whole organism approach to the body and to aches and pains and injuries, and appreciating how the viscera and the nervous system can be reflected in musculoskeletal pain and dysfunction. And so to me, that's a really good example of like one of the main symptoms of hypothyroid or even hyperthyroid, like basically thyroid dysfunction, is muscle aches and pains. And, like, which can feel like constant upper trap stiffness and soreness. It can feel like sore feet all the time, especially in the mornings. And it's just like as your joints get inflamed, right? Like, and so many autoimmune diseases are like that. And I think sometimes we forget about that as musculoskeletal biomechanical based practitioners. We forget to ask the questions that could lead us to understand like it's something else, it's something visceral, it's something, you know, and from a visceral standpoint, it could be functional or it could be structural. And so figuring out how to appreciate that, and that's a little bit of a dance that we talk about a lot in the LTAP, is like you can only do so much with manual work and movement to support the organs, because really at the end of the day you're supporting their structure and their function at the same time. But sometimes it's not enough. Sometimes you need help from nutrition or from pharmaceuticals or from some sort of intervention that needs to be led from a doctor or a different type of healthcare provider. You need them on your team. And so it's so important to know when to refer people for things like that. And I always think to like, man, what would the general population do if they didn't have my knowledge, right? Like someone in my same situation would just like feel like shit for a really long time before somebody figured out that it might be their thyroid. So anyways, that's why I share it too, is not only just to share what's going on in my world, but also just to kind of like share that. Like, and share like this is why I have this podcast, like just to keep it on your radar that musculoskeletal aches and pains and injuries, though they seem biomechanical a lot of the times, that's not the only piece. Can there still be a biomechanical piece? Of course. Do I still care about movement? Of course. But the driver of that biomechanical thing might be something deeper, like a visceral or a neural thing, functional health sort of thing. So, yeah, what else has gone on in the summer? I had my birthday. I am officially 44 years old now, which is nuts. The alternative is that I'm not around, so I'm happy to be here, and I'm happy to be 44, even though I would prefer to be like 28, 32 maybe would be my preferred age at this point in my life. I had a great time. I didn't really do a ton. My sister came down from Sacramento, surprised me, which was really sweet of her. We had a great day. We went plant shopping. I added to my garden, both indoor and outdoor. And then we had a nice dinner and went to Coronado and saw the sunset and had dessert. It was great. And then the next day, Went to Disneyland with, 2 of my friends and their kids, so 10 of us descended on Disneyland and California Adventure and had quite the day. We walked equivalent steps of 14 miles in, like, 14, 15 hours, which is insane to me. When you think of it as an hourly mileage, it doesn't seem that's crazy, but total mileage, 14 miles during the day. I woke up the next day and I could barely walk, which again is part of the reason why I was like, "Oh, something's going on." Because it's not like I don't walk and it's not like I don't work out. Like 14 miles is a huge training year, but at the same time, like there was something about my feet soreness the next day that has actually lasted a whole week that just is different than my normal my feet hurt after Disneyland sort of thing. So anyways, that was really fun though. Um Other than that, just kind of been reading a lot of books, which is great because I associate reading fun books with rest and feeling rested, in my brain, if that makes sense. Like, sometimes when I'm so stressed out or I'm so busy or so overwhelmed with things, I actually just don't feel like I even have the bandwidth to read books, and I have been consuming them so much lately, and it just makes me happy. In fact, that's kind of like all I want to do right now is read. So it's a little bit of a challenge to like put the book down and like start to dive back into work. Um yeah, so things looking forward to what's on the calendar the rest of the year. We got 2 in-person LTAP level 1 courses coming up. We got space only left in one of them. So there are 7 seats left in the Boston course in October, and that's it. That's the only available in-person LTAP level 1 seats available for the rest of the year. I'm finalizing some dates and locations for courses in 2025, and then the online 6-week course starts is going to start October 8th, I think. Whatever. Let me look at the calendar. Sometime the first week of October, October 7th is when the LTAP starts. So we'll be running the results cheat code again. That's going to run September 22nd. It's going to be the version of that's called the missing link. Super excited for that. So get ready to have that on your radar. And then I have a new product coming out in November that I'll be sharing with you all soon. And then, gosh, it's the end of the year, which is crazy. But super, super excited to take the next group of people through the LTAP level 1. Oh, and that's what else is rolling out in the fall is the certification. So super excited. I'm sending out emails actually this week to my teaching assistants and my mentorship alumni, offering them to sort of like be the first people to go through the certification. So that's going to be really exciting to roll out in the fall as well. So I know that makes a lot of my general population happy because the amount of emails I get daily asking for a practitioner in their area is big. So I can't wait to have a group of people to actually refer out to. That's it for the housekeeping stuff, I believe. So let's get into this episode. So this episode, I asked for help from you all for recommendations of what topics to talk about. And thank you for those of you who messaged me or emailed me. I appreciate it. A lot of them were like really complicated things, which I definitely don't have any experience in certain diseases or certain issues. Clearly your patients are having these. So I will do my best to address those questions. And actually that's kind of where I want to start. And this is what comes up a lot when I'm teaching in the LTAP too, is inevitably, or even in the mentorship, in general, when I am mentoring practitioners, the question will always come up of like, oh, this person has a history of this surgery or this issue. What should I do for them? And so, like, for example, Dr. Kirsten Wishloff, chiropractor in Canada, she sent me in a question for the podcast, and this is a good example of it, and sort of kind of with the feedback I told her. She said, "Hey, I had this patient with pelvic pain who recently had gastric surgery, like a gastric bypass or something like that. And she said, I'm interested to hear your thoughts on how it's connected." And, and she had seen this client before. And so she gave me a little bit of like feedback on the situation. But, my answer is what I want to share with everyone. Because, like I said, this is when I'm mentoring people, this kind of question comes up a lot, is like, this person has this. What do I do? And this is the annoying part, is because the answer from me is always, it depends. And I hate giving it depends answer, because that doesn't help you at all. But also, it's important for us to realize when we're looking at this whole organism approach that the body is designed to compensate for things that happen to it, including sometimes surgeries, injuries, traumas, whatever it is. What makes us absolutely magical, amazing at being human beings is that this drive for survival of the species, survival of our own body, allows us this robust capability to have this resilience of having a lot of shit happen to us, and we just keep going. I see it on a daily basis from my elite athletes, from my elite like special forces operators in the military. What makes them better than me and you is this above the neck capability, and maybe even this nervous system capability to keep going despite the messages from their body telling them to stop, despite all of the load, all of the things that have happened to them in their body. They keep going. And it reminds me too of this quote from Jean-Pierre Barral about disease, right? That it is not like, basically he says that when the body loses the ability to compensate, that's what creates the disease. That's what creates the injury, the pain, the dysfunction, is the body loses the ability to compensate. It is not the compensation itself. And if you're like me, when you hear the word compensation, you instantly think of movement dysfunction or movement compensation. And that's a very good explanation. Like, that's a very good way to kind of think about it too, is that when someone has knee pain in the old biomechanical model, maybe we would have blamed their movement compensation. And the movement compensation being like, I don't know, knees, too much internal rotation and adduction, like valgus upon loading, right? Which could be driven from lack of ankle mobility, could be driven from lack of hip mobility, could be driven from lack of hip stability, could be foot stability, could be core stability causing all of those things, right? Those are movement compensations that we think are driving this knee pain. But what happens with our patients? We see often their pain goes away, their tissue heals itself, but they still have the compensation. So you have to ask yourself, was it the compensation that was the problem? or was it like something else? And so it helps you to reframe that the compensation is not the problem. It's when we lose the ability to compensate, that's the problem. And this becomes sort of like the more pain science thought process of the threat bucket, or like what I would, before I knew it was called the threat bucket, I would say it's like a cup of compensation, that we have this resilience in our nervous system, this resilience in our tissues, in our body, in our organism, that we can have a lot of stuff happen and not have a problem. But all of a sudden, we can reach our fill point, and then when we reach our fill point of compensation, the body can't compensate anymore and it breaks. And breaking might be it physically stops, it makes you sick, it creates disease, whatever it may be, or, or just pain. And so we look at this threat bucket, or we look at this cup of compensation, and we think, how do we support it by decreasing the amount of shit that's happening, so we're always at a standpoint where we can compensate? And this is where understanding like all of the things that we do to facilitate rest is important, and how what rest looks like. It's not just stopping what you're doing, it's not just sleeping, it's like the social engagement, co-regulation, it's like all these parasympathetic things we're doing to our nervous system that may be related to sleep, that may be related to eating, digestion, but also just helps us have space in our threat bucket, or have space in our cup of compensation. And so how this relates to the question is, when we see someone come to us with this history, and this is also why in the LTAP I encourage people to not start with a subjective history, because it biases you to what you think the problem should be. If I know they had stomach surgery and I have this belief that even the incisions, the scars are going to cause havoc on the abdominal cavity, on the fascia, and change the way we move because of it, I'm going to then bias all of my evaluation and all of my treatment around that belief. But what that does is it doesn't allow for me to see what the body is doing a good job compensating for. If the body's compensating for it, why do I need to fix it? Maybe fixing it could be helpful, but it might not be the first thing that I need to deal with. It's sort of like it's the elephant in the room. We don't want to get distracted by it. It can be so distracting when we know they have this issue. It can be so distracting. So we don't want to be distracted by it. And the only way you cannot be distracted by it is two things. One, well, I think really the only way to not be distracted by it is realizing that, number one, the body is really good at compensating for things and dealing with things on its own, and it doesn't need you. There are plenty of people who have surgeries and heal just fine and go on and move well, feel well, do well. They don't need someone's hands on them, or someone telling them how they move, or doing exercises with them. I hate to break it to you. There's plenty of people in the world that do just fine after injuries and after surgeries without intervention. But then there's people who are not, that don't, right? And so it's sort of like up to us to decide how we want to interpret what their body is telling us in prioritization of if it really is affecting their ability to compensate or not. So this is why I teach the LTAP. This is why I believe so much in the general listening with the hands of the osteopathic listening and the locator test assessment protocol is because it's a way to ask the body, like, what is going on with you? Where are you having a hard time compensating? Where are you having a hard time dealing with whatever is going on? And whatever is going on can be anything. It doesn't have to be the elephant in the room, the biggest thing that's ever happened to them, or the most current thing that's ever happened to them. And so it's important for us to take someone's history and like be considerate of it, but not to get distracted by it. Because everything is connected. Everything anatomically is connected. We were once one cell, so it's all connected. My tongue is connected to my toe, and if I know the anatomy really well, I can give you any connection. I can tell you the neural connection. I can tell you the vascular connection. I can tell you the lymphatic connection or pathway. I can tell you the fascial pathway, the muscle pathway, like whatever, the bony pathway, right? The more I know the anatomy, the more stories of connection I can tell you. But what I can always tell you is that we started as one joined cell and we developed from that. So everything is connected. And so, of course, could someone's stomach surgery be related to their pelvic floor problem? 100%. But is it always? Not necessarily. I will only know if their stomach is influencing their pelvic floor if I test it. So you have to assess the pelvic floor, you have to assess the stomach, and then you have to do some sort of inhibition test to see if it's having an influence over it. And these are some of the principles that I teach in those courses is inhibition testing and how can this help us. But just the LTAP itself is going to direct us of if it's important or not. So, you know, of course, I answered her question and I gave her the most common anatomical relationship to how it would be affected. But at the end of the day, I said it's important to not get distracted by their story and actually have a way to assess the body to figure out where to start, because it may not be a problem for the body at all. The body might be compensating for that surgery lovely. And if you mess with it, if you mess with the area that the body is actually dealing with fine, you actually chance fucking things up and making life worse for that patient. And so this is also like, why would you mess with it? Their cup of compensation is operating well in that scenario for that specific elephant. So, understanding this resiliency in the body, what makes this so magical is important. Understanding that the body is smarter than us, and we can't assume that because there was a surgical trauma or a physical injury or an emotional trauma or whatever it may be to a certain tissue, that is the problem. That is an assumption on our part. And you know what assuming does, right? Makes an ass out of you and me, because we don't want to assume based on this belief that everything that happens to the body, right? Every compensation is bad. Compensation is not bad at all. Compensation is actually good. We want the body to be able to compensate. A healthy, well-performing body compensates really well all the time. We want the body to have robustness and resiliency within its tissues, within its biomechanics, within its nervous system to be able to compensate. How do we say this in the biomechanical world that's popular now? Movement variability. Right? Have you all noticed that like back in the day, or maybe currently for you, like it depends on what mode of teaching you use. Movement compensations are bad, but now all of a sudden it's like, oh, you gotta have movement variability and different, capacity for movement variability to stay healthy. So it's like, make up your mind. Is it compensations are bad or compensations are good? We're just going to call them variability. And I'm going to say they're good. It's a variability. And also compensations are showing robustness and resiliency in our threat bucket or in our cup of compensation. Resiliency is robustness in our tissue quality, in our biomechanics, in our nervous system's ability to heal itself. So this is what we want: compensation. We want to be able to compensate. And so understanding that allows us to realize that when we take a thorough subjective history, which do it, I'm not saying don't do it. It's how you catch a lot of red flags that are going to help you decide to refer someone back to a doctor. But also, don't let it distract you from your actual physical examination of the body. And your actual examination of the body, which should, I think, include the LTAP or a way to do something like osteopathic listening that helps you communicate with the body to determine where the body thinks the biggest problem is, where the body is directing you that the driver is from, which may or may not be something significant in their subjective history. So this is why every question I get from my mentors is depends. This is why I require people to go through the LTAP and use the LTAP in order to go through my mentorship program. Because if I'm going to mentor you and I'm going to help you with your patient, when you come to me and say, what should I do with a patient who has pelvic pain after a gastric bypass? I'm going to say, who cares? Who cares really about their gastric bypass, except if the body is directing me there? Now I care about it, and then I'm going to evaluate other things around it. But if that's your patient and they come to you and the LTAP's directing you to their right ankle, I'm going to say, great, treat their right ankle and see how their pelvic pain changes and all the biomechanical stuff around pelvic pain. Because if somebody presents to you with pelvic pain, you have a orthopedic biomechanical list of things that you think might be driving it. And now we want to always see how that changes after we treat where the body's directed us. So we treat the right ankle and it changes all these biomechanical or orthopedic things that may contribute to their pelvic pain. That's great, because then I know I'm probably going to affect their pelvic pain or pelvis dysfunction quite a bit. Did it have anything to do with their gastric bypass? No, not necessarily. So this is why. This is why, because we can't assume that everything that happens in the body is a problem for the body. Because the body is designed to compensate. Period. Resiliency, robustness of all of the systems in our body is what makes us magically human and makes us able to do all the freaking magical things that the body does, including heal itself. So that's where I'm going to leave you with this podcast episode, is understanding that even on these podcasts, when I suggest common visceral referrals for certain things like knee pain, okay, it's commonly urogenital, kidney, like let's check that first, doesn't mean it always is. I am always going to defer to where's the body directing me, and then doing an orthopedic assessment, collecting all the information of things that I would love to change in their body that I think may be creating this tissue problem or this pain problem. And then I'm going to go treat where the body directed me, and I'm going to reassess, treat, reassess, see what we're left over with, and then dig in more there. So hopefully that's helpful. Or not so helpful, but it definitely gives you food for thought. And hopefully the next patient you see, when you take a subjective history, you don't give it so much weight. Yeah. Okay. Have a great day. We'll see you next week. As always, if you have any suggestions or things you want to hear about, please send me an email or shoot me a DM on Instagram. It's the best place. Happy to be back, and we'll see you next week.